Alright? So, okay, we continue, right? And Granny, as again, I don't want you to answer, you will just be the judge of whether they are right or wrong.
Okay.
For those of you who know Granny, and as a little child, every morning I wake up, I would see her sitting on her bed, doing devotions, singing songs, you know. I've grown up seeing her like that every single morning. Right? Granny has favorite hymns. I know she sings a lot, she knows a lot of hymns. And some of the hymns that I know, and I know that hymns that have been back in the day hymns, it has been passed on from her to me. Right? In fact, there are a lot of senior people in my church that don't know hymns that I know, even though they have been Adventists longer than me. And it's because of Granny. Right? She has a special knack for hymns. Right? But for those of you who know her and have heard her sing, what would you say are some of her favorite hymns?
The throne of God stays silent.
Granny?
Amen.
Okay. Face to face with Christ my Savior. Okay. Anybody else?
There'll be no doubt, Granny.
Granny, that's one of your favorite hymns too?
Yes, we sing it.
Alright, well you seem to have a lot of favorite hymns. Right? Okay, so what are some of Granny's favorite singing? Now, if you live with Granny, you'll realize that she says some things over and over again. Alright? Some of them I do not know what they mean, but she says it over and over again. It's often a way of expressing herself. For those of you who would have interacted with her, you know, what are some of her favorite or most profound statements? Think about it. Nobody? Auntie Esther? What are some of Granny's favorite statements? You can't think of anything right now.
She always says according to the saying, and whatever she wants to say, she says it after by saying.
Yes.
So the saying goes.
She often says according to the saying.
Yeah.
And if she has to make a big point, she will respond by saying, "Where you talking?" She will continue. For those of you who know her will know that she often uses this statement when she wants to say something and she's excited about it. I remember when I was a teenager, and at times when it is we never had school and stuff like that and we vacation, sometimes Granny would have me washing every single day. I don't know where the clothes was coming from, but every single day I was washing clothes. And sometimes now she has a special way of washing clothes. She has a particular way of washing clothes, and if you don't wash clothes her way, she could become upset, and she will use statements like "bafre, bafre, oh bafre." I do not know what that means. I honestly don't know what that means, right? I don't know what that means, but I've come to understand that statement. So if anybody can share with me what that means, I'll be.
I think it's something within it, it's like an expression.
Yes. Oh, Father, yeah.
Right? One of the other quotes that she used, she says that life at its best is uncertain.
Yes.
And that is so true. One writer says the certainty of life is its uncertainty.
I always use that one.
Yes, the certainty of life is its uncertainty. One day you could be on a pedestal, and tomorrow we can be done. And therefore, it means that we must live every day as though it is our last. By saying so, I mean we must live good, we must live committed lives to God. As if He were to take us tomorrow, we will be ready for Him.
Oh, yes.
I like to compare statistics, right? I like to compare statistics. One thing about me is that I will ask people their age, and I know ladies sometimes feel offended when you ask them their age. I've learned that I shouldn't ask a woman her age, but regardless of the fact, I like statistics, I like numbers, right? Um, when I did some comparison between Granny's age and mine, you would ask what is there to compare, right? But I've come to understand that when I was born, Granny was about over 60 times my age. Yes? When I was born, she was 60 times my age. When I was 10 years, she was 7 times my age. Right? And today I'm 27, and she's just over 3 times my age. Wow, we are coming closer. Right? And it just says that we are all becoming what she now is. Some of us will not live to 90. Some of us will. But the fact is that one thing I can conclude is that we are all becoming older. Right? We are all becoming older. Right? But the emphasis is not on how old we become, but it is on how mature we become as we get old. Because if you are aging without maturing, then you're not really fulfilling your purpose and you're not growing. The truth be told is that no matter how old we are all still growing. Yes, we are all still becoming. You can never be so good at something that there isn't room for improvement. You can never be so old that you have no need for learning. Right? We are all learning. Because one thing I've come to understand is that growth is not static. Yes? Growth is not static. We are all becoming where she is. One thing I've come to understand about life, about her life, we can come to understand that life is like a race. But it is not like 100 meter. It's like a marathon. Yes, life is like a marathon in itself. And the emphasis in a marathon is not how fast you can run, but on how far you can run. Yes, it's not on how fast you can run, but on how far you can run. Because the truth be told is that there are a lot of busy people who are going nowhere. There are a lot of busy people who are busy and they are going nowhere, meaning they are not fulfilling their ideal purpose that God has sent them here to fulfill. It was Don Moen that says, when it's all been said and done, there is just one thing that matters. Only what is done for love's reward will stand the test of time. The truth be told is that we may live, we may die, and our names may live only as long as those who could remember us. But one day, if this earth were to last 1,000 years, our names will die. But what we do has the power to go on beyond our living. And therefore, what we focus on is not so much making a name for ourselves, but seeking to replicate the principles that would have been rooted in us. The truth be told is that our lives may die, but our principles will live on. Yes? And just before I close, I'm wrapping up, let me say a couple of short things to you. There are many people who are questioning, why are we here? Not here. We know we are here to celebrate with Granny. But why are we here? Why are we here? Why are we living? Why are we existing? Did we fulfill our purpose? It's a question that Granny may ask. I've lived for 90 years. Did I fulfill my purpose? And the truth be told is that every one of us, we are looking for meaning in life. We are looking for meaning. We are all searching for meaning. But quite often, we look in different places for meaning. The truth be told is that the best place that we could look for meaning to our lives is from the Bible. In fact, in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, it says that God says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and ordained you a prophet unto the nations. It's quite interesting that in the human sphere of things, as human beings, we are logical, we are sequential. It is almost impossible to know somebody before they were conceived. They must be conceived, they must be born, they must begin to grow and interact with us before we know them. Yes? But here it is that God says that He knows us even before we were conceived. Quite interesting is that God often, while we as human beings, we see things in a sequential, logical way, 1, 2, 3, 4. God often sees our lives in reverse. He sees the end from the beginning. Right? He sees the end from the beginning. He sees the end before He sees the beginning. So that if He says that He will take you through there successfully, it means that He's looking at the end before He sees the beginning. Right? And one of the things I've come to understand about this text is that it says that that God knew Jeremiah before he existed. It tells me that God's thoughts concerning each of us are longer than our own existence. God has been thinking about us far longer than we were in existence. Granny is 90 years, but God's thoughts about Granny expands more than 90 years.
Oh, yes.
Before she was even beginning to live, he was thinking about her. And because God is eternal, that means he's unending. Because God is eternal, he has no beginning or no end. It means that his thoughts concerning Granny was beginningless and endless. It means there was never a starting point for him to begin thinking about her, because she has always been on his mind. Yes, we have always been on God's mind. There's never a point in time when he has stopped thinking about us.
Amen.
Right? What is important to understand? What is important to understand about purpose and life is that our purpose exists before us, because our purpose was in God's mind even before we were created. Yes, our purpose was in God's mind even before we were created. And one writer says, God had a purpose for you before anyone had an opinion about you. Yes, God had a purpose for you before anyone had an opinion about you. God's purpose for you is far greater than the thoughts and opinions that people have concerning you. Yes? And I just want to close by saying this. For those of us who would have read the story of Job, right? For those of us who know the story of Job, we know that Job suffered. Yes, he suffered. He was a man who was dedicated to God. He was a man who was rich in cattle, in houses, he had a family, and in a moment of time he lost everything. He lost everything. Diseases came upon him. He was stricken with boils. His children, his servants, everything depleted. He has nothing. But in the end of the story, we see where Job receives everything back. He gets a double portion of all that he lost. What is quite interesting is that when we look at the book of Job, we see why Job suffered, but Job never saw why he suffered. Job never saw why he suffered. But one writer says that he did see God, and that was enough. And the truth be told is that sometimes in our experiences, we may never know why we suffer. One writer says that the book of Job was written to the suffering Hebrew slaves who were in Israel at the point in time, to help them to understand something about purpose in the midst of suffering, right? And the truth be told is that sometimes God will allow suffering and we may never understand it, because sometimes God is using our lives to write a book to people who will one day read, and it will be more beneficial to them than us who were protagonists in the book was. The truth be told is that sometimes while we go through certain things in life, it is because God has our lives as a testimony for those who will one day read it. We may never see it now, but if we were to see the type of inspiration our lives may bring upon somebody because of what we would have gone through, we may run into our trials rejoicing because of what it would have replicated in the lives of others. So I'm saying to you, to each of us today, and to Granny, that 90 years have come, but it hasn't come without its challenges.
Amen.
Right? It hasn't come without its challenges. But what I think I have learned from the Bible and from life itself is that God says that God didn't say that everything that comes to you will be good, but He does say that all things will work for your good. You serve a God who is able to take even the most messed up situation and work it around for good on your behalf. And that's what He does. Whatever He touches, He turns into gold. Even the cross was seemingly a sort of scornful thing, yet today the cross is a symbol of Jesus' triumph, right? And so what we can say today is that the trials that we experience in life shapes us to the people that we will become tomorrow. Yes? And I know I see there's a cake and such. I do not know, I'm not going to venture into it, but for those who are specialized in that area, I'm going to leave it up to you. But before we do so, we have a song to sing, yes? We have a song to sing, and I do not know this hymn, so those who know this hymn will lead out in it. Yes? I think it's what, 558, 559? Was the one that
What's the name of it? What's the name of this Very good.
You know it. You know it. Huh? Okay. And now thank we all God with hearts and hands and voices, whose wondrous things are done, in whom his word rejoices, who from a mother's arms has blessed us all the way, with countless gifts of love, and still is all unity. Okay? Pastor.
I don't know the song.
And you know?
No, I don't know it.
And your grandmother didn't teach you this old song?
No,
It's a very
that
old song.
one.
Okay, give them. Who have the phone?
Ready? Right. Excuse.
Now thank we all our Lord, with heart and hands and voices, who wondrous things have done, in whom this world rejoices, who from a mother's arms hath blessed us on way, with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today. Oh, may this boundless Lord, through all life be near us, with ever joyful hearts, and blessed peace to share us, and keep us in his grace, and guide us with goodness, and free us from all ills, in this world and next. All praise and thanks to God, our Father now be given, the Son and him who reigns with them in highest heaven, the one eternal God, whom earth and heaven adore, for thus it was, is now, and shall be ever.